will be pretty much the same as you guys throughout the weekends on your games, maybe in different ways, different kind of challenges, but it's hopefully you can use them as well and create a stronger mental, or what we usually call mental toughness. So build your process, your own routines, your own strategies for you to perform better in the field and to relate better in the rugby community off the field as well. So that will be my mottos. Lauren will speak about probably a little bit different because we are different. And one of the things that probably will focus throughout the session as well is how important to be us ourselves, to make sure that we perform well and have a balanced environment and with yourselves when you perform or off the field. I think that's important too. But feel free to ask questions during the session. I will try to keep it as simple as possible because sometimes we don't get to have a sports psychologist, we don't get to have a nutritionist, we don't get to have an SNC. So we will use our personal experience to all the challenges that we face throughout our careers, how we now maybe do some tweaks around what we need to perform well at the weekend. So obviously one of the big questions here is why we referee, and that drive us throughout our careers. Why we referee? Is it because we love the game? Is it because of the money? Is it because of the fame? We will all have a couple of goals why we do it, the reasons why we do it, but we need to know that. And I think once you actually know why you're doing it, it becomes easier to then plan, prepare for the goal setting that you want to achieve. So there is no problem to be the best referee in the under eights. And if your goal is that one, that's perfect, because we then can build strategies and create some mental coping mechanisms to face the challenges that we have in that competition. If you want to achieve the World Series or the World Cup, if it's realistic as well, then you have to build different strategies because you will face different challenges. I'm a very emotional person, so I need to deal with a lot of emotions. My emotions, other people's emotions. I come from a Latin country, so we all have this emotional relationship with each other. So my challenges will be around my emotions and external emotions. So the crowds, the players, the coaches, the parents. When we speak about the parents, probably all of us here in the room had problems or challenges facing parents that are watching the games of their kids, and something happens and they go and ask us what happened, why you didn't referee this, why you didn't referee that. So preparation around the emotional regulation is very important. Firstly, to feel myself as a person well balanced, happy, to reduce the pressure. So one of the things that I work really hard is how I regulate my anxiety, how I regulate my excitement, because we can be very excited and it can be overwhelming, but when we are sad as well, how we can bring us, how can we do it to bring us up and feel comfortable and happy and well to then promote a good game. So I speak a lot with a lot of people. I don't have the luck to have a sports psychologist or a psychologist or what kind of therapist we can have now these days, mental coach, all these fancy names. So I rely a lot on friends. I rely a lot on colleagues. I rely a lot on mentorship. So older referees that I know in my community that can actually help me to just speak out. And sometimes it's just about the rugby, sometimes it's about the family, sometimes it's about the work, people that you can trust and to feel comfortable to speak what is in your mind. And I think that helps. And one of the things that I learned throughout these all years of career is embrace the emotions. Because sometimes you go, oh, I need to be very squared up, no emotions, poker face during the game, but we are just shading us and putting some makeup on all the feelings that we have. And if we embrace the feelings, we actually make it easier to then, okay, when I start to feel a little bit more anxious, what do I do? What do I have to do? And sometimes it's just speaking to myself as some cue words. Sometimes it's to do exercises. Sometimes it's to sleep a little bit. Sometimes it's to listen to music, depending on the feelings. But it's a kind of way to accept what I'm feeling and to make sure that I'm okay, and rather than take it all in. And once we are under pressure, we sometimes protect ourselves too much. And definitely, for me, that's the personal pressure that I have to face. Obviously, the external pressure will be leading with or dealing with coaches, with the players, with the game itself, with the competition. Can be the under 14s, can be very challenging. And sometimes it's just go there and have fun. But sometimes we know that the games are not that easy and we need to deal with what happens. So I will speak a little bit of my theory, and I will jump to Lauren to speak about her philosophy around how she prepares and how she deals with it. I'm a little bit more simple process, simple routines. That probably it's like when we say one size fits all. If I have it a very simple thing that I can control, when some stuff happening in the game, outside the game, or when I have to deal with something, it's actually easier to have my plan, to prepare myself, and to control the situation, rather than if it's too complex, then you don't have the time and space to solve it. So I'll give you a very good example. So you got to get an appointment for a game on the Saturday. So during the week, on the spare time, because we all know we might not be professional 100%, so we need to work. We need to find some spare time to prepare our games. And that's why simple routines always help me, because I always had my work aside. First thing, fitness. I need to be fit. And if I do that, that's one task done. It's something that I don't need to worry. Second thing, know my laws. If I know the laws, it's something that definitely that I won't need to overstress and think about it during the game. And sometimes, especially in the community games, there is special regulations that tackle below the waist or below the armpits. Need to know all these variations, so I make sure then when I need to go to the game, I'm already prepared. Weather, I don't know. I don't control the weather, right? So I don't need to worry. I just need to be sure that I have everything I need to referee the game. Obviously, maybe an extra layer, especially in Vancouver now, it's very important, but it's something that I don't control. So I will probably focus more on the controllables rather than how's it going to be the weather? Is it the pitch going to be muddy or not? But definitely think about it, but don't overstress to have a plan for it. If the pitch is muddy, what do I do? So what kind of game I will have? Maybe that will enter in the next step of the preparation. So fitness done, laws of the game done, I prepare myself. Simple routines. What do I need to do in the game day? what do I need to do before the game? And sometimes people say, oh, I like to do spa, massage, go sleep, have this special meal. I actually like to go maybe have a good night's sleep, normal food that I usually eat, because changing habits just because you have an important game can change your well-being as well. So do your normal routine. I like to write down what I want for the game. So just bullet points. I don't get very descriptive, but I make sure in the breakdown I write 2 or 3 topics max. In the scrum, 2 or 3 topics max. So I can have then visualize or start to visualize what I want to achieve for the game. And definitely closer to the game, I already did that. I have my planning, simple plan, so I can control. And I keep it, and I stress about the simple because I love coffee. You guys probably have a very good culture around coffee in Vancouver or BC. So what happens if you don't have coffee around? That can be an extra stress. So I make sure if I have coffee, I know where to find the coffee. If he doesn't have coffee, then I have my backup plan, and might not be having coffee, but I don't stress about it. Definitely something that people stress about it. I don't have earphones. What do I do? How do I listen to my music? If you like to listen to music. So in your own way, you need to deal with that in a simple manner to make sure that in the game day or when you need to perform, it's not a stress. And then
Paolo, we just have a quick question here.
Yes,
Just looking
yes,
for an
Heather.
example of a topic that you'd write down for the breakdown.
So breakdown. Usually I write 3 bullet points. Tackler needs to roll away. Tackler assist needs to release. And the arrival players need to be on their feet and playing from their own side. That's the only 3 things I want in the breakdown. Obviously, it's more complex. It happens more faster, depending on the game as well. But if I only have these 3 plans, 3 bullet points, I probably can referee with more security rather than saying, what is the actions that the tackler needs to do? Release, roll away, go to their side to play the ball. It's a lot of things. And then you have the tackler assist. He needs to release. He needs to go from his own side. He needs to stay on his feet. So I'm focusing more on the action that I want to see from that player. And maybe in my preparation, I like to anticipate what is going to happen. So let's say a tackle is about to happen, and I'm already thinking, who is the player that is going to make the tackle? If it's a tackle from 2 defenders, so if I have 1 ball carrier and 2 defenders, who are the guys that are going to make the tackle? So then I can start the process. And then I'll go, if the guy goes to the ground, the tackler, what he needs to do? Roll away. If the guy doesn't go to ground and it's the tackler assist, what he needs to do? Clearly release and be on his feet, obviously, or stay in his feet. And then the arrival players, if they want to play the ball, they can jackal as long as they stay on their feet and come from their own side. And that's how simple the process can be, or my checklist can be for a complex situation that happens like this so fast. Did I answer your question? Hopefully, yes.
Yes, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, hopefully, yes. So I'll pass down a little bit for Lauren, and before we go into the game situations, how she deals with her pressure, knowing that she will do a game in the weekend or the tournament itself. How she prepares, I think, will be a little bit different than myself, I am sure.
Perfect. So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Lauren, obviously, and I just want to start by saying thank you so much for extending the invitation out to us. It's really cool to be here and connect with you guys and share a little bit of our experience that hopefully you can take something away from and add it to to your routine and how you mentally prepare for your matches. I just want to start by saying that authenticity is key. As Paolo said, there is no one size fits all, and there's not this mold that someone needs to, change or form into. Everyone is different, and I think that's the unique beauty around being referees and our, I'm going to say, team. Is we're from all over the world. We've got all different backgrounds, but we're here for the love and the enjoyment of the game, and to provide something back to our communities. I guess that's a little bit bigger than ourselves. So I think authenticity and being individual should be championed, and I think that has detriment moving into like how you mentally prepare yourself. So here's a little bit about me and how I deal with this. So for me, I'm a big believer as piss poor planning equals piss poor performance. So that's just like a little saying that I guess I live by. I'm a bit of a planner. And at the end of the day, I have to remember the main reason why I'm here being involved in footy is because of my enjoyment. So if I'm planned, if I feel prepared, if I'm planned and I'm enjoying myself. So that means going back to kind of what Paolo said, is that I'm going to have enjoyment if I know that I'm physically meeting, the demands of the game. If I've done my work around, key focus areas and law, I guess, variations. And then just knowing I've set myself up for success by mentally feeling good, and someone just popped up in the waiting room. That's okay. Like mentally feeling good and refreshed, ready for the game. I'm a huge believer in nerves are good. If you don't get nervous or don't get excited, then kind of what's the point? So I like to channel that energy into my games and use it to my advantage. So a big thing for me, I'm going to break these down into, I guess, like three things: is pre, during, and post. So for me, for pre-match, I've got the philosophy of going a little story time. I played touch at high school and I loved touch. And you could imagine that at high school, when you've got like a mixed environment, it was probably very chaotic, and we're having to prepare for games and matches. So my coach had a little bit of a saying, so boots on, switch on. And I thought that was really cool. So you can muck around, you can play your music, you can do whatever, but as soon as it's time to put our boots on as a team, that's when we're rugby mode. And so that's something that I've actually kept with me moving forward. So I'm very relaxed on game day. I do like to have music in the changing room. I like to have lots of conversation, feel the energy, get excited, not take it too seriously. But as soon as I put my boots on, I guess there's just a bit of a shift in my state, and it's game time. And so then everything becomes rugby focused. And obviously, depending on the tournament, that could be an hour beforehand, that could be 45 minutes beforehand, an hour and 45, hour and a half beforehand. So obviously that's just something that I use. So when it's time, boots on, that's time for me to switch on and become rugby mode. Also, for me, a big thing, as I just said, music in the sheds, creating like a really relaxed and calm environment is something that I'm all about. I understand this is something that works for me, and that's not always going to work for everyone. So I think it's really important for people to find the formula and find the things that make them tick, and they're going to set themselves up for success. That's really important to try find. Just very conscious that that's not a one size fits all, and everyone needs to find the formula that works best for them. So kind of going back to my pre. So again, having done my game plan, knowing that I'm physically ready, knowing that I've scratched up on the law variations or some laws that have been challenging or tested me recently, and just having a really good, feeling really prepared getting into the game is something that I like to do to help me, I guess, cope with the environment, with the atmosphere, with the nerves, just knowing that I've best prepared the best way possible to set myself up for success. I then go to during the game. Obviously, things might not go as planned, and it's really important to be able to identify that. And as a referee, you know, we have to constantly think on our feet and constantly adapt. And I think it's really important that you have a bit of a plan for when it, you know, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. When it goes great, this is perfect. Don't change a thing. Keep doing what you're doing. But then also when it goes bad and when it goes ugly, being able to, I guess, just switch off, park it, and then move on to the next thing. You don't want one decision you make in the first 5-10 minutes of the game then influence your decision making moving forward. So for me during the game, I'm a big believer in the first 10 minutes of, let's say we're talking about an 80-minute game of rugby. The first 10 minutes for me of the game in the half and the last 10 minutes of the game in the half, to me, are the most important moments. They're the big moments. They're the things that happen. They're the crunch time. And so for me, I want to have a heightened awareness that these are the times I'm going to be making some big decisions. Not everyone might agree with that, which is absolutely okay. That's kind of why I said at the start, authenticity is key. You have to create a formula that works for you. But for me, I'm a big believer in those are the big moments, and I need to be really aware of that. Other people might have little tips and triggers around, okay, I'm going to break the game down into 20-minute blocks, into quarters, and really focus on each 20-minute and resetting after that. So something might not have gone quite right, and they're worried about that. But once the 20 minutes is out, okay, we park that, and then we move on to the next thing. I think these are really good little tips and tools to do just to help you mentally refresh, because a game can be physically demanding, it can be mentally demanding, and to be on for 80 minutes is actually really tough work. And I think it's really important to identify that and come up with little strategies that work for you to help you guys aid that.
Lauren,
another little
sorry. Just jumping on those little tweaks that keep you on all game. Sometimes as you said, you like to block it 10 minutes the first and 10 minutes the last. People will do 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever works actually. It's important as well to have a trigger for us when we have a decision. As you said, there will be a decision in the game that can haunt us for the rest of the game. How we do it to park that one. So usually, for example, myself, I have a trigger word that I can choose for all the games or just for that specific game that I've been working with, like reset, next breakdown. And I know if I say that, I'll be ready for the next breakdown. Even if I was not sure in the last decision I made, or something that I got this wrong, I won't let that decision haunt me to the rest of the game. And that's where, when Lauren say, how I set myself in the first 10 minutes can be a key for how I finish the last 10 minutes. But during that period, we need to have a trigger, especially when something happens that we were not prepared, where we were just like, oh, we got surprised, or the plan that we made was not fit for that situation. So the backup plan needs to, okay, I need to reset and keep doing it, because we will have to referee or continue to referee the game. Lauren, I was just saying that because I think for me, I always have a keyword that I go reset, next breakdown. Sometimes it's just like happy ends, can be banana, whatever works, but just distracts you from the previous decision, but puts you on the game mode for the next decision that you have to make.
Yeah, absolutely, Paolo. And that's actually a great segue into my next little bit. Was often I can find that some referees, set piece could be an area of the game where they almost like take a break or take a breath. And I think that's really important. But for me, actually, set piece is a moment, like a trigger. This is my trigger for me. All right, we switch on here. I'm not going to take a break. I can take a breath, But set pieces is for me my little trigger of, okay, now we work again. So I'm still working in my 10-minute block at the start, my 10-minute block at the end. But every time it's set piece, I'm just having, again, that heightened awareness and that little trigger to be like, okay, I switch on now, I switch on now, I switch on now. Yeah, I think that these breaks or these stoppages in play can also be a moment, it could be a water break, or could be something else that works for you. And I think set piece is one of my triggers, just like Paolo, you said, is one of yours is using those keywords. And then for me, going into post-match, depending on your game and how well you've gone, this will change for everyone. I think it's, as a referee, we obviously get a lot of feedback. We can get a lot of comments. We can get a lot of criticism. And I think this is probably the biggest the biggest area I like to have an emphasis on, because obviously we've got, like review structures and processes that we go through, but it's really important to know what works for you here and how you can park, I guess, a crap call, a crap game, and then switch on and then not let that influence your decision making or affect you moving into the next week. So for me personally, post-match, nothing good comes 30 minutes after the game. And what I mean by that is we need to take all the emotion out of it. So let's say you've got a coach or you've got comments from parents or supporters or things like that. Nothing good comes 30 minutes post-match. And so I always like to give my time, myself that time and space just to, again, have a breath. My emotions are obviously heightened right after a game. Spectators, coaches, players' emotions are also heightened after a game. So I just like to take 30 minutes of time to myself, take a breath, and then if there's anything I seriously want to have a look at, like immediately, or have a conversation with, I have people who I use as a sounding board. I've identified a couple people in my life. They could have things, they could be parents, families, friends. They could be coaches, they could be mentors. Finding those people that can just help you unwind and reset is really important. And and as I said, if there's a call or there's a decision that I would really like, I find those people, normally my coach, to chat about, and then post 30 minutes. Then if the coach comes to me and the sheds afterwards, we're at a post-match function, the emotions also then just taken out of it, and then having a conversation over a cold beer an hour and a half later, you seem to more align, and I think that's really important. So that's something that I like to do to deal with the pressure and to deal with I guess the pressure of coaches coming to me 30 minutes after that. I also think it's really important. So for me, as I said, I've highlighted a few key people in my life who help me unwind and reset. I have friends I love hanging out with who have nothing to do with rugby. They don't chat rugby, they don't know rugby, they don't talk rugby. And for me, actually getting away from rugby is really important when a lot of our life is consumed by rugby. And that might not work for everyone. Actually, hanging out with some of your rugby mates, chatting over conversation, having conversations, chatting over calls you made during the week could be one of the things that make you tick. And one of your coping mechanisms and strategies is actually talking through decision making and getting real clarity around what you're wanting to achieve next time. But for me, I review my game. I have my process with World Rugby, or used to be New Zealand Rugby. It'll now be the Italian Rugby Union. So, but once I've gone that process, I definitely need a couple of days during the week to switch off, get away from it, and just have some normal conversations outside of rugby. Paolo, how do you deal post-match after rugby? It might not have all gone to plan. Are you someone who likes to have conversations and get clarity, or are you someone who likes to completely switch off? How do you deal post-match with those conversations? Or
sorry, I'll just jump in before Paolo here for a second. We have a question in the chat for Lauren about that 30 minutes after the game. Do you physically make space for time for yourself, so, corner of a pitch in the change room, that kind of thing, or is it more of a mental side?
It's actually both. So it definitely is kind of away from everyone. So I'm sorry, when I say that, it's away from the teams and the coaches and the supporters. I'm absolutely happy to have my team of 3 or my team of 4 and be with the referee. Obviously there's some conversations if there's been some big calls in the last 10 minutes of the game, we'll immediately have. But I think just separating myself from the other coaches, the players, the supporters is huge for me. And mentally, that is how I then just take all the emotion out of it and reset, recalibrate, have the opportunity to chat through some calls if it's necessary with my team, and then go and face the crowds after 30 minutes.
Lauren, I think I'll pretty much do the same. I think it's very important for us to take our own space, our safe space after a game, even if it goes well or if it goes not so well, or there is some controversy around something that happened in the game, or a team is not as happy. So we need to find that space and that safe space as well. So it's space for ourselves, and especially for me, because as I said in the beginning, I'm a very emotional guy. So I went through a lot of emotional in my head. Even my body language can change if I get too emotional. So I need that time and space to regulate myself, and that can be in the changing room, that can be outside, just a little bit laying by myself. I usually go to the changing room because it's probably the safest place we can have after the game, especially if I have a team of 3. I'll ask them to be okay, you can speak, but just I'll have my moment. And I think that's important. So, and when you get to know each other, it's important to understand how different we are. When Lauren say we are all different, and that is very important to be very respected as well. Because sometimes we have always very excitement to say, oh, what about this call? What about that? What about this? And there is a moment where we need to just be silent, or speak about the weather, or speak about the beautiful birds that were in the pitch, but not the rugby. And for me, for example, I like the 30 minutes because it's always a good period of time where people can relax, have the shower, take care of the papers that we need to do for the match. Might have a couple of calls, either with a coach, a friend, family, and definitely if then when you are okay, I feel prepared to face the world, then we go out. And I think it's important to go out and go, if there is like a function, after function, or just a beer in the clubhouse, to go there to feel. And I think to feel the ambience, the environment. There will be a lot of friendly people, more than we think sometimes, but if the environment is a little bit okay, it looks like a funeral, you just go there, say okay, thank you for the game, and then you move away and go with your team. But I think it's important to be there because there is always a friend. And as Lauren said, you can have a coach, you can have someone that you already know from being there a couple of times, that can be a guy that can give you good feedback, honest feedback, and it's just around the game, not because it's the club or against the club or against the team. So you can find those people, and I think us being rugby people, we know that how important it is to go for the social part after the game. How I deal with a post match, I deal a little bit different. I disappear from the world. I go home, and as Lauren said, I don't do rugby for the next 24 hours. I just completely off social media, off Facebook, off everything that has anything to do with rugby. People say, oh, you need to do your reviews in 48 hours. I'll do it, but not just the first 24 hours. The first 24 hours is just for me to reflect, to think about it, to stay away. to balance myself again. And definitely when I feel like, okay, now I can review the game, I can watch the game, I'll do it. And I'll probably do it better because I already had the time to reflect, rather than I feel the pressure that I still very much emotional about the game, and I start to look up for decisions that I didn't make, and probably decisions that I don't have to make, but I still look for it because I'm very emotional. So that regulation for me, it's very important. And I'm pretty much like Lauren. I like to speak with people after, and maybe my mental coach or my mentor, my coach. But most importantly, I like to speak with players. I have a good relationship with them, probably back home, because I referee them a lot with some of the players. So I'll probably drop them a message, or if I see them across, I'll engage them rather than separate from them, and ask their opinion. Did you see the game? What did you think? And then we can have a discussion. We'll build that relationship. And to be fair, and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, if you build that relationship as well during the game, it becomes easier. Even if we have an incorrect call, they will respect you more because they understand as well our work. And creating that relationship of respect help us as well when something goes wrong or not as planned. Post game can be difficult as well, especially with the parents in the community rugby, with the people that are watching the game. So if I feel like the emotional part dissipated, as I said, I'll stay, engage a few people, and have a overall view of what happened. And sometimes they go, "Thank you so much, Paolo. Was a nice game." And you know, in your back of your head, something went wrong. It's a good as well feel for what's happened in the game, not just you focusing on the refereeing. But apart from that, pretty much, if something went really wrong, I'll disappear for 24 hours. That's my emotional regulation, and I think it's important for you to find your own as well. And some people like to go to parties, like to go listen to music, go to a social event, or go to the cinema. I just like to be quiet and not saying not dealing with it, but I will speak with people that I trust, and I think it's important. But less talk about rugby and more talk about other situations, just to clear our minds once we get to the games or the next game, especially sevens, for example. It's something that is very hard because we don't have that time, that 24 hours. So we need to shift really quickly from one game to the other. And that regulation needs to happen very fast. So I'll tell my experience. I like to see the game very quickly, go through, do my notes, and then I say reset, next breakdown. You remember my cue? Next breakdown. So next game. And that's where I close that chapter, and then I need to move on for the next one, because in the sevens, if that decision in the first game haunts you to the second game, you won't perform well, and it goes to the third game, and definitely you can finish your tournament once you just started. So it's very, very important to reset very quickly, game by game, but most importantly, and that's where I find it very important for me to have that reset next breakdown, because in sevens it's a lot of breakdowns very quick, so it kind of helped me to go through this 14 minutes quickly, and in a way that I can deal with the situations more often. I heard, yeah, go Lauren.
I think we have a couple of questions. I think I see here there. Cool, I'll just go through and answer a couple of those. So the first one, I think Bob, you've put this one through. I'm a coach of match officials. When do you want to get feedback? When do you not want to get feedback? I think as a referee, I'll start this by saying, obviously, like adaptability is huge in our game. And we actually had a really, really big conversation at the Rugby World Cup in October, November last year around this question: when do we want to get feedback from the coaches and from management, I guess? And we kind of came up with and everyone's different. And that's something we're going to just keep reiterating and keep repeating is everyone's different and everyone operates differently. So some people want it immediately. They want to get to the sheds. They want the management to come in. They want them to be told exactly how they went, where to next, what things they need to look at, and go from there. I think as a referee, the more experience you get, you already know some big moments or some big decisions or high impact decisions that you're already going to go check when you do your review already. And then obviously once you do your review, then there's those little trends or those little decisions that come in that you're not immediately aware of. So as a group, we decided an hour actually after the game. And the reason why we did that, because of the quick turnaround times at the Rugby World Cup, one team kind of got off the pitch, and then within the next kind of hour, the other team was in the changing sheds ready to go for game 2. And then game 3 obviously was an hour following the conclusion of game 2. And so we said as a group, management in the changing sheds, absolutely giving it to one referee. How does that then set the second or the third referee on that day up for success, when that could be interrupting their prep and how they prepare for their game? So we said an hour, so that obviously gives, again, time for the referee, the AR, TMO to recalibrate, reconnect as a group, chat about a couple of things, and then also take that emotion out of it, and then for management to come in almost as game 2 is starting, and out of the referee's way, and then as game 2 starting, kind of chat to the referee. I appreciate this is something we did at the Rugby World Cup. I think it more like a community and grassroots level. Personally, me having a chat with a coach or my mentor or someone after the game around specifically decision making, I'm happy to do that after the game, probably still within those 30 minutes. Let me just have a chat to talk to my team first, and then come in. And then obviously you can have a more in-depth conversation maybe a day later, or if you've got a meeting with your union that week, then catch up a bit more in detail there. So mine would probably still be personally that 30-minute window of just having that space to myself, and then come in with the feedback from the coach.
And I agree with you, Lauren. I think the window for feedback can be adjusted depending on the people that you are dealing with, the competition, obviously, but most importantly, if we are watching a referee, or the referee knows he's being coached by someone, communication. What time you want to get your feedback? Do you want to get your feedback straight after, half an hour, 25 minutes? I personally like feedback after the 30 minutes. Maybe when we're having a beer, we can speak just generally about the game, and then I expect to have a more detailed coached report conversation after, like Lauren said, maybe 24 hours or 48 hours. We all know that we are not professionals, mostly in the community rugby, so just a matter of how we communicate and manage that expectations. One thing for sure, if I say 30 minutes, we should do it in 30 minutes. If I say 24 hours, we should do it in the 24 hours. Because as a referee, for me, is an expectation that something is going to happen. I'll try to manage my emotions, my work to do it. If something doesn't quite get my expectations, that can interfere for my next game as well. So it's a matter of communicating what is realistic, and actually understanding how the people work in that environment. So if I say, Lauren, I'm going to watch your game, pre-game, what are your goals? And when you want to have some feedback straight after, 30 minutes, 1 hour, or we have a call during the week, and she probably will say something. what would you say, Lauren, if I would do that? But definitely just a matter of communicating and creating that relationship, because then we will have to talk about the tough decisions. And that's where the trust comes in. And if you don't trust the person, you will protect yourself. And that coping mechanism with the stress, it's an extra stress that we don't need. So there are people that are there to help us. So we need to accept them and to embrace them. But if the communication doesn't start well, we're creating an extra stress moment, stressful experience that can lead to a stressful moment later on in the weekend, in the tournament, in the season, and then it kind of doesn't work. And probably people sometimes don't understand why they don't speak to me or why they don't want to speak with me. And probably maybe it's just a communication or expectations around what is to be done. I see Elijah asked a question. If we have time, ever, just to answer that question. I think it's very, very interesting question, Elijah, especially you're so young. When I said preparation, and Lawrence spoke about preparation, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. I like that. I like that too. And might be in different detail, but if you prepare yourself with a keywords, simple routine, you will probably be more prepared to referee what's in front of you. And it doesn't matter if it's a team that likes to play scrum, line out, pick and go, that rugby that is hard to referee because there is a lot of things happening. You just be ready to referee what's in front of you. And if the team chooses to play free-flowing rugby without, you have still to make decisions because they will do something, and you need to be ready to referee what's in front of you. So the preparation might differ because you will be understanding, if you know the teams, one team will be free-flowing, so you need to position in a different way. So if it's Fiji, for example, you need to be probably a little bit away from where the ball is to give them space to play. You don't want to be in that place. If it's a team that is more physical, vertical, maybe you need to be more closer because there will be more breakdowns. And if there is more breakdowns, there is more decisions to be done or no decisions to be done. You need to referee then again what's in front of you. So that's the kind of preparation that me and Lauren probably do around what is the teams trying to do, what are the teams trying to do, but definitely have a simple process to then, if they change, have that adaptability that Lauren likes to talk, and we need to do it so often to be able to, okay, if they start to play free flow, what do I do? If they start to play more vertical breakdown, focus, physicality, contact, what we need to do, but not changing anything. It's just like refereeing what's in front of you. It's not just, oh, now I need to make decisions. No, sometimes we don't. And sometimes it's just to step away. Sometimes we need to speak more. It's just about reading what is in front of us, but have what Lauren said, and what we are trying to say here is to have that plan, have that preparation, control what you can control, the fitness, the laws, your checklists, and obviously some mind triggers for you that work. People like to sing. I know a referee that would love to sing during the games. Lauren might know her as well. Have that ability to escape when the pressure is on, but to get that game focus, like Lauren said, boots on, game on, and then be ready to referee. And I think that's where we are all different, but at the same time, we will all do the same in the rugby pitch. So it's just finding what suits, what works to make us there and make us to perform better. Most importantly, and just finishing, is be yourself. Sometimes we feel the pressure of being a different referee. We see Nigel Owens or Wayne Barnes or Chris Asmus from Canada, and we want to be like him. It doesn't work because we are not him. If I wanted to be like Lauren, it's impossible. I'm not Lauren, so I need to find who I am first, how I'm comfortable with, and work from there. It will be easier than trying to copy someone and be uncomfortable. And one of the things leading to the conversation here, we two spoke around. Sometimes our referee manager, the coach that is coaching us, is telling you should do this, you should do that, and you should do it differently. You should approach the game in a different way. And sometimes we need to understand that we need to adapt, but we cannot change who we are. And sometimes they say you need to speak strong and front forward, but sometimes you work around and it works as well because it's you. If you force that, it doesn't work. And under pressure, when you are under pressure, I am sure it won't work. Do you agree, Lauren?
Yeah, absolutely, Paolo. You honestly took all of the words straight out of my mouth. So I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to say now, but that's okay. So I think also just following on from what you're saying, I think that can actually be really challenging though. Having those conversations with people, I appreciate they can actually be really challenging, because if this is actually the way you would like to do something and it might have been done this way before, and initiating that change, that can be quite tough. And I think that's where you need to be really self-aware and know, actually, no, this is going to set me up for success, and this is going to benefit my refereeing and my processes and my systems. And yes, fundamentally, if your coach is saying, mate, you need to move your position because you're in the wrong place and you're not ruling accurately, then absolutely listen to your coach. But what I'm saying, that your process and your system to get there can differ, slightly from referee to referee, and those conversations can be challenging. So we do appreciate that, but do have the courage to be able to have those and actually be like, okay, well, let's give it a try, and let me try this, and then if it doesn't work, then we can recalibrate and come back to maybe reassess of how we can do that differently. If that, hopefully that makes sense. And then just, Elijah, just going back to your question, Paolo took the word absolutely right out of my mouth. Going back to my word of adaptability, you can plan, you can have plan A, you can have plan B, you can have plan C. But if at the end of the day you have two teams that are just completely different, your plan sometimes might not work. And that's just the reality of refereeing. And I think that's just the reality of having to adapt and just referee, as Paolo said, what is in front of you. I think a big thing for me is a little philosophy for me is around, what does the game require of me now? And I really like that. So what does the game require of me now? And does that mean the game requires me to call a penalty? Or does the game require me to actually just have a non-decision? And for me, that is huge into creating that free-flowing, that structured game, potentially if you've got two very different teams. And so that's something that I like to use. And potentially that's something that you can work with your coach on. But what does the game require of me now? And coming up with a bit of your own philosophy of how to create that structure in a game when there is absolutely none and the teams aren't giving you any. So that's, I guess that's what I do.
100%.
And I just want to go back to Bob's question of, when do you not want to get feedback? For me, I don't want feedback at halftime. I don't need my coach coming to me at halftime, giving me feedback on a game. I think halftime's really, really key piece for me to get in touch with my ARs. I think this is slightly different from receiving feedback. Like, I know if I'm doing okay or not. I know actually I've done a couple of decisions that are probably a bit questionable, and I'm going to obviously go through my review process after the game and even come to you about those questions. But I don't need to be told at halftime, if I'm doing good or bad. I've probably got enough self-awareness now that I know where I'm sitting at. However, some things that I do when I do a match, a 15s match, an international match, is I will, if my coach isn't there at the fields, I do sometimes call them, and I'll just have them on the phone with my team of 3, and I will be leading those discussions. So they're just sitting there as a bit of a sounding board. This is someone who I put a lot of faith in, and I will be leading the discussion at halftime, not them, but I will have them on the phone, and then we'll just be chatting through some things, and it's more probably not specific individual decisions. It will be trends, and it will be high impact decisions around, so not high impact decisions that are making, high impact decisions that I may need to make of when I'm saying kind of what does the game require of me moving forward. Let's say we've just had a couple of penalties inside the 22 quick on the dot, then in half time it's like, okay, well, how am I going to now reassess, recalibrate with my team moving into the second half, which could potentially lead to a high impact decision, if that makes sense. So I'm not discussing high impact decisions from the first half. I'm connecting. Oh, sorry, someone's just, it's a little bit distracted. Someone's come up. At halftime, I like to have talk about that is perfect. And that's, so at halftime, as I said, I actually do have a conversation with my coach, but it's me leading the discussions rather than them telling me if I'm doing good or if I'm not doing good or things like that, if that makes sense. For me, there's a big difference in that. But that's cool. I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep reading these comments as they come through. Oh, thanks, Dan. That's great. Thanks for coming.
I think we just have a follow-up question from Bob. Do you want questions or comments when you do get that?
Probably a bit of both. There could be, if I've leaded that discussion at halftime and between my team of 4, I'd say, and I haven't come up with a specific trend or something, they may just say a couple of comments around, oh, have you thought about this? What are your thoughts on this? So it's not saying you're refereeing this incorrectly, or it might just be like, what pictures are you seeing at scrum time? It's not coming in being like you're incorrectly calling this, or you're this. It might just be asking me questions on, okay, so what pictures are you seeing at scrum time? At breakdown, what are your thoughts on the blue team? So questions and comments, I think, are a really good mix, and especially if I'm leading that conversation and not, I guess, raising things that I need to refocus on in the second half, then happy with questions and comments on that. What about you, Paolo?
100% questions and comments. If you question too much, we might not get the answer we want. If we comment too much, we probably don't have the referee to think about what he actually had done. So a balance between question and comments will help the discussion and promote what will be the feed forward, because sometimes we focus on right or wrong, but we need to focus on how we get better for the next situation. So definitely the questions, I would just do an observation, especially when I get feedback. I would like to know how I felt throughout the game, and I would like to know the opinion of the person that is going to assess me. Because if I say usually, oh, the game was really good, I did really well, and this and that, and then my coach says, Paolo, I'm not sure if it was really good or really well, can stop the conversation there. So starting with how you felt the game went, and how the coach felt the game went, and then from there build the conversation. But definitely comments and questions, a good balance from it. It's what I like as well. So
I'm just going to jump in here. I see, Carl, I think you've written a question around, but most of the time we don't have a team or ARs, and yeah, that is huge at club rugby. Obviously, the higher you go, the more involved teams are, and teams of team of 3 and team of 4. But at grassroots and community rugby, it can be, I guess, quite isolating, being out there and by yourself, not having a team with you. And so my piece of advice for this would be, you're not going to be able to focus, you might have a couple of work-ons, and it should only be a couple of work-ons each game. You're not going to be able to change everything. You're not going to be able to improve everything in one game or one weekend. And so I think it's really important before the game, potentially even writing down, what are your 2 or 3 things you really want to achieve in this game? And whatever they are, I think then it's really important at halftime to, I guess, evaluate how you're going on those things. So at halftime, that's your time to have that own space and to, I guess, reflect on the half. And so I think it'd be really good to reflect on what your 2 or 3 work-ons were, and then at halftime look at and track how you're going. And if it's not going so great, that could even be writing it down or anything. If it's not going great, then you can be like, okay, well, how can I improve this in the second half to a level that I'm comfortable and happy with it. Yeah, I appreciate that in community rugby. Being by yourself is really isolating, but that is something that I would, if I was in that environment, that's something I would do, and just have a couple of key things to work on, and then reassess and reevaluate at halftime. What about you, Paolo?
Yeah, I think knowing that we don't have ARs pretty much in a lot of games as well, how we work. Myself, I like to write down a couple of words before the game, and then double check on the halftime. But definitely, I like to find people that I can go, that I trust. Can you just have a look on this during the game? And one of the things that probably we didn't speak about here is we are not going to see everything. We will do mistakes, and we have to live with them. And sometimes writing it down makes it easier rather than just keeping it in your thoughts, especially because you don't have anyone to talk about it as a team. Bring it to your coach, yes. Normally, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, we usually have one touch judge from each team that we can still build relationship with that people that are actually helping us out. So sometimes I try to work with them as well, knowing that they can only put the flag up if the ball is out or if the posts are valid or not, the goal posts. But you can still ask questions, and if there is a stoppage, go there with a smile and ask questions. How are you feeling? All right. What do you think? Anything in specific? And sometimes you have an answer that is very accurate. Sometimes you have an answer that you might not know, makes you think. But that relationship can be very important as well for the future. But for that moment, they might see something that you didn't see in the game. So let's say blue team is starting to hold the players after the ball is gone and you're following the game. And someone says, hey, Paolo, I think they are getting a little bit more violent or aggressive. And sometimes it's just some white noise that you can ignore, but sometimes it's something that happens. So use those persons that we have, obviously, to maybe create the awareness. It won't make decisions for you, but it will help you with the awareness of what's happening, especially when we are all alone by ourselves in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Paolo, what you said is 100% right. Relationships are key. And when you are by yourself, having a player or management or a reserve or someone running touch for you, at the end of the day, they aren't an AR, they are not an assistant referee. And at the end of the day, you are the sole judge. So they can feed you information, but it's up to you whether you want to go ahead with it or not. But I think that relationship building is key. Introducing yourself before the game, creating that rapport is only going to pay dividends during your game and post and after your game. I think that's the beauty about rugby. You know, we're all here for the same common goal, the same reason to be involved in the game that we love. And those connections that you make can go a long way off the field, but then also in your credibility and confidence and calls on the field.
100%. 100%. Heather.
Perfect. Yes, wanted to see if anyone has any last questions, shoot them into the chat. Otherwise, we will wrap it up shortly. But yes, Paolo and Lauren, thank you so much for coming out, giving us your time with some really cool information. For everyone who's on the call, it was recorded and it will go to your provincial union. So if you want to have a copy to refer back to later, your provincial unions and referee associations will have it and should distribute it to you in a couple weeks. Yeah, so thank you very much for coming. And Lauren and Paolo, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the invitation. And hopefully we'll see you somewhere in some rugby pitch.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, team. It's been a pleasure. I hope you were able to take something away from our experiences. Yeah, it's been really nice chatting to you guys. If you see us around on social media, reach out if you've got questions. You know, we're always open and we're always keen to knowledge share and to grow the game and to grow us all as people, not just as referees as well. So all the best with your rugby refereeing journeys ahead. Yeah, and we'll see you later.
See you.